Welcome to another driving tour here in Cebu, Philippines. Today, we're going to explore Liloan Cebu, one of the municipalities in northern Metro Cebu that I think deserves much more attention. As we drive around Liloan, I want you to look beyond the roads and the buildings. Look at the communities, the businesses, the accessibility, the shopping areas, the restaurants, the coastline, and especially the changes happening around this part of northern Cebu. Because Liloan is no longer simply a quiet town outside Cebu City. It is becoming increasingly connected to the wider Metro Cebu economy and lifestyle. And if you're a property buyer, investor, retiree, expat, digital nomad, or someone simply considering where to live in Cebu, this is an area worth watching. So let's drive around Liloan and see what this town really has to offer. One of Liloan's biggest advantages is its location. Liloan is positioned along the northern corridor of Metro Cebu, connecting toward Consolacion and Mandaue City to the south, while providing access toward Compostela and other northern municipalities. That means you're not completely disconnected from the urban center. You're a part of a much larger metropolitan area. And this is important when you're thinking about real estate. A property doesn't exist by itself. The surrounding roads, transportation, schools, shopping centers, hospitals, restaurants, employment centers, and future infrastructure all contribute to the attractiveness of a location. Liloan benefits from being connected to this northern growth corridor. You can see that as we drive. There are established residential communities, local businesses, commercial establishments, restaurants, and newer developments appearing throughout the municipality. And for someone who wants a quieter lifestyle without being completely isolated from Cebu's urban centers, that's an interesting combination. One thing I like about Liloan is the variety of lifestyles you can find here. You have the more developed areas along the main roads, but you don't have to go very far before you start seeing quieter residential communities. There are subdivisions, houses, smaller commercial areas, farms, and countryside surroundings. So compared with living in the middle of Cebu City, Liloan can provide a different kind of lifestyle. It's generally less urbanized, with more opportunities to find space and a more relaxed environment. For families, that can be attractive. For retirees, having a quieter residential environment while still having access to shopping and essential services can be important. And for investors, the interesting question is whether continued population growth and infrastructure development will increase demand for housing in the long term. Of course, we shouldn't assume that every property will appreciate. Real estate is always property specific. But when you're evaluating an area, one thing I always recommend looking at is where people are going and where infrastructure is going. And northern Cebu is certainly an area worth watching. You might be wondering, does Liloan have enough shopping and everyday conveniences? The answer is that the municipality has developed a growing commercial environment. One recognizable destination here is Kaisano Grand Mall, Liloan, along the Central Nautical Highway. There is also Bay Mall, Liloan, adding another shopping and commercial option for residents. And this is important because you don't necessarily have to travel all the way into Cebu City for every daily requirement. You have supermarkets, retail stores, restaurants, banks, services, and other businesses developing around the main commercial areas. For people considering moving here, that everyday convenience matters. You don't want to live somewhere beautiful, but have to travel a long distance. Every time you need groceries, food, banking, or basic services. Liloan is gradually building more of that everyday infrastructure. Another thing you'll notice when driving around Liloan is the growing restaurant and cafe scene. There are local restaurants, cafes, food parks, Korean restaurants, bakeries, fast food outlets, and casual dining establishments. Current listings include places such as Skyline Restaurant, Tite's, and many other restaurants throughout the municipality. And that may seem like a small thing, but lifestyle amenities can have a big impact on residential demand. People don't simply look for a house, they look for a lifestyle. They want somewhere they can have coffee, meet friends, eat dinner, exercise, shop, work remotely, and spend their weekends. And Liloan is developing more of that lifestyle environment. You also have attractions such as Papa Kids Marina and Fishing Lagoon, which provides another leisure destination around Silent Bay. So there's a nice combination here between residential living, local lifestyle, and access to nature. Now let's talk about something very important for Liloan's future: connectivity. One of the most significant pieces of infrastructure here is Pier 88. Pier 88 is a maritime terminal in Liloan that connects the area with other destinations in the Central Visayas. It was officially inaugurated and opened to the public in 2023. For me, this is one of the developments worth paying attention to. Why? Because transportation infrastructure can change how people move. And when transportation improves, the relationship between residential areas, employment centers, commercial districts, and surrounding communities can also change. The traditional way of looking at northern Cebu is simply, it's far from Cebu City. But that's not necessarily the complete picture anymore. You have road connectivity, public transportation, maritime connectivity, and continued development along the northern corridor. And when you combine those things, Liloan becomes much more interesting. For residents, better connectivity can mean more options. For businesses, it can mean access to a wider market. And for real estate, accessibility is one of the factors investors should always examine. Not because infrastructure automatically makes property prices go up, but because accessibility can influence how desirable and usable a location becomes. So why would someone consider investing in Liloan? For me, the answer comes down to several factors. First is location. Liloan is part of the northern Metro Cebu corridor and is connected to Consolacion, Mandaue, and Cebu City. Second is infrastructure. Road improvements, transportation connections, and Pier 88 all contribute to the broader connectivity story. Third is population and residential demand. As Metro Cebu continues to expand, people don't necessarily have to live in the traditional city center. Some people prefer living farther north, where they may find more space, different property options, and a quieter environment. Fourth is commercial development. When you see malls, restaurants, hotels, schools, services, and businesses developing around an area, that's a sign that people are already living and spending money there. And fifth is lifestyle. This is increasingly important. A buyer may want access to Metro Cebu, but doesn't necessarily want to live surrounded by high-rise buildings and heavy urban activity. Liloan offers another possibility. Live somewhere quieter while remaining connected to the city. Now, if you're watching this from the United States, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, Europe, Singapore, Japan, or another high-income country, you might be wondering whether somewhere like Liloan could work for you. For retirees and expats, the attraction can be the combination of a tropical environment, relatively lower living costs compared with many Western countries, local communities, and access to Metro Cebu. For digital nomads and remote workers, the question becomes connectivity and lifestyle. You may not need to live directly inside Cebu City's business districts if your work is primarily online. You can potentially choose a quieter residential environment and still travel into the city when necessary. Liloan even has co-working options, such as iPortal Liloan, showing that remote work infrastructure is beginning to appear in the municipality as well. Of course, internet reliability, power, transportation, and the exact location of a property should always be checked before making a decision. But this is where Liloan becomes interesting. It offers the possibility of combining countryside and coastal living with metropolitan access. As we continue driving around Liloan, one thing that becomes very noticeable is the character of the town. Liloan has this interesting combination of being part of the greater Metro Cebu area while still maintaining much of its own local identity. You can see modern commercial establishments along the main roads, but just a few turns away, you can still find quieter barangays, residential streets, farms, churches, small stores, local restaurants, and communities where everyday Cebuano life continues at a much slower pace. And I think that's one of Liloan's biggest attractions. You're not necessarily choosing between city living and countryside living. In some parts of Liloan, you can actually get a little bit of both. You can spend your morning in a quiet neighborhood, drive a few minutes to a supermarket or restaurant, and continue toward Cebu City or Mandaue when you need access to larger business and commercial centers. That's an increasingly attractive lifestyle for people who don't necessarily want to live in the middle of a very dense urban environment. Liloan also has something that newer residential developments can't simply create overnight, and that's history. One of the town's well-known landmarks is the San Fernando Rey Parish Church, which dates back to the Spanish colonial period. There's also the historic Bagakay Point Lighthouse, overlooking the Mactan Channel. The lighthouse dates back to the 19th century and remains one of the recognizable landmarks of Liloan. And then there's something that Liloan is particularly famous for: rosquillos. If you've been to Cebu before, you may already know about titays. Titays has been associated with Liloan's famous rosquillos for generations, and food has become an important part of the town's identity. So when you think about Liloan, it's not simply another residential municipality. It has its own history, food culture, coastal environment, and local identity. And from a tourism perspective, that matters because places with a recognizable identity can create additional opportunities for restaurants, cafes, accommodations, tourism businesses, and lifestyle developments. Another advantage of Liloan is its relationship with the water. The municipality sits along the coast, and areas around Silot Bay provide opportunities for leisure and tourism. One of the better-known destinations is Papa Kit's Marina and Fishing Lagoon, where visitors can enjoy outdoor activities and a different side of Cebu. This is important when we talk about lifestyle real estate. People increasingly want more than just a house or condominium. They want access to nature. They want restaurants, recreation, coastal views, weekend activities, and places where they can relax. For retirees and foreigners, that lifestyle component can be particularly attractive. Imagine living somewhere where you can enjoy a quieter residential environment, but you're still within the Metro Cebu area and can access the city's shopping, healthcare, business, and entertainment destinations. That's part of the Liloan proposition. And now we're seeing another important change in Liloan's commercial landscape. One development worth watching is Bay Mall, which soft opened in 2025. The development includes Robinson's Supermarket along with retail, food, and service businesses, with plans for dining, wellness, and a BPO facility. And this is interesting from a real estate perspective, because when a town starts attracting larger commercial developments, it tells us something about the market. Businesses don't simply choose a location randomly. They look at population, accessibility, consumer demand, and future growth. Bay Mall is also particularly interesting because of its connection with the broader Pier 88 development. The developer has described plans for shuttle connectivity between Pier 88 and Bay Mall, helping connect passengers and customers between the port and the commercial center. So you're starting to see a more complete ecosystem developing. Transportation, retail, restaurants, services, business, and residential communities. When these elements start coming together, the area becomes more convenient for everyday living. Another thing I want you to notice while we're driving is the number of small and medium-sized businesses throughout Liloan. You'll see restaurants, cafes, pharmacies, convenience stores, repair shops, professional services, local retailers, and many other businesses. This is important because a healthy community isn't built only around large malls. It's built around thousands of everyday transactions. People need to eat. They need groceries. They need healthcare. They need transportation. They need schools. They need banking. They need restaurants. They need services. And businesses follow those consumers. As Liloan's population and commercial activity continue developing, there can be opportunities for entrepreneurs who understand the local market. For property investors, commercial spaces, apartments, rental homes, and properties close to established commercial corridors can therefore be worth studying. But again, the specific property matters. A great location doesn't automatically make an overpriced property a good investment. You have to look at the numbers. And one of the things I really enjoy about driving around Liloan is seeing how quickly the scenery can change. Along the main highway, you have a much more urban and commercial environment. But as you move farther into some of the barangays, you can find quieter roads and more residential surroundings. This creates different real estate possibilities. Some buyers want to be close to the highway and commercial establishments. Others want privacy. Some want a subdivision. Others want a larger lot. Some want a property with mountain views. Others prefer being closer to the coast. And this is why I always tell people that you shouldn't evaluate an entire municipality based on one property. Liloan is diverse. The experience of living in one barangay can be completely different from another. So if you're seriously considering buying here, drive around. Visit the property at different times of the day. Check the roads, check the drainage, check utilities, check internet availability, check flood exposure, and most importantly, understand what is actually happening around the property. From a real estate perspective, I wouldn't describe Liloan as simply a place to buy because it's cheaper. That's not the right way to evaluate property. Instead, look at the fundamentals. Where are the major roads? Where are the commercial centers? Where are people moving? Where are transportation connections improving? Where are schools, restaurants, hospitals, and businesses expanding? And perhaps most importantly, What kind of lifestyle does the location offer? Liloan has several of those characteristics. You have established communities, commercial activity, access to the coast, mountain and countryside areas, transportation connections, and proximity to the larger Metro Cebu market. That doesn't mean every property here is a good investment. Price, title, zoning, utilities, flood risk, road access, rental demand, developer reputation, and future development plans all need to be investigated carefully. But as an area to watch, Liloan definitely deserves attention. And that's what I wanted to show you on today's drive around Liloan Cebu. This isn't just a town that you pass through on the way to northern Cebu. Liloan has its own communities, businesses, lifestyle destinations, shopping, restaurants, tourism attractions, and transportation connections. And with infrastructure such as Pier 88 and the continued development of northern Metro Cebu, the story here is becoming increasingly interesting. Maybe you're looking for a place to retire. Maybe you're an expat looking for a quieter lifestyle. Maybe you're a digital nomad looking for an alternative to the busy city center. Or maybe you're an investor looking for areas of Cebu with long-term development potential. Whatever your reason, I hope this drive gave you a better understanding of what Liloan actually looks like on the ground. And remember, real estate is always about location, location, location. If you enjoyed this Liloan driving tour, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more Cebu driving tours, real estate, investment, and lifestyle videos. And let me know in the comments, would you live, retire, or invest in Liloan Cebu? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next drive.